Welcome everybody to Spirituality Adventures. This is a non-judgmental place to explore spirituality, and we're so glad you're here. This is a viewer and listener supported podcast, so we greatly appreciate your support. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, share, and subscribe to any of the social media content platforms that you're using. And then if you go to our website, spiritualityadventures.com, you can make a one-time donation, or with a monthly subscription, you'll gain access to our bonus content. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome everybody to Spirituality Adventures. Thanks for joining us. And this is our first time to do an interview with three people, brothers and sisters, right? So great to have you guys. We have already interviewed once before Jake Wells Thompson. You got it. And then we've done an interview with Taylor Thompson. So yes. Two brothers. But Brooke is joining us today. Hello. Brooke Cherith Thompson.
You got it. Right again.
Yeah. So this is so much fun. And I love the interviews that I did with you guys previously. And so this is really fun to have your sister. So Jordan, there's 5 brothers and sisters. Mm-hmm. So we've got 3 of the 5. Jordan's the oldest. Who's the youngest?
Me.
Brooke is the youngest. Jake's the middle. Is that right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So pretty good representation here.
Yeah.
And then mom and dad are going to be out there listening, I guess, right?
Definitely.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but yeah, let's have our audience who hasn't, maybe didn't catch the first interview, kind of like orient our audience to your growing up years as a family.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to start, like where you're from and what your family did together for so many years.
Yeah. So we were born in northwestern Florida. My dad was worked at a Christian college there. Met my mom there. Both of them are independent Baptist preachers' kids. And so we're kind of born into that world of independent Baptists. And so we lived in Pensacola for, I guess until I was 7. So right after Brooke was born, and then moved to Niceville, Florida. And then we're in Niceville, Florida for a couple of years, and then went on the road to travel and sing gospel music together. We lived in a bus and traveled around the country and sang in other independent Baptist churches for I think 6 or 7 years, and then settled in Kansas City. And I think all of us have moved away from Kansas City and moved back, at some point or another, but all of us are in Kansas City now. Okay. So yeah, that's kind of the brief overview. Yeah.
So how old were you when you were traveling in a bus, and you guys are going from basically independent Baptist church to independent Baptist church?
Yeah, you got it.
Coast to coast?
Yeah.
North to south?
Yeah.
Whole country?
We never made it up into like Idaho, the Dakotas, Montana, but the whole East Coast, all the Midwest, and all the way out through the Southwest to to California.
Okay.
So never Alaska, never Hawaii.
Do all of you have memories of good, solid memories of those 6 years that you traveled in that bus? Like you're all old enough to have.
Yeah, I can speak for myself and say yes.
Yes, yeah, I for sure have memories.
Yeah, I was like 10 to 16, so I remember pretty much everything.
10 to 16. How old were you?
4 to 9.
4 to 9.
Yeah, a little different.
Were you singing at 4?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
she had
Fred.
solos.
Serious?
Did I sing?
God, I wish we need a video.
It was very cute.
No, you don't need a video.
No, what do you mean?
When you ask the most embarrassing question for the bonus round?
Yeah.
It's just matching sweater vests is all I need to say for that for me.
Did you all have, you matched?
Yeah, we had outfits and the whole
of the
deal.
time,
It was
yeah.
a production. Yeah.
Oh, man. I need a video.
We'll get you a video, man.
I gotta see.
They're out there.
Yeah. Gosh, so you were 4 to
9.
To 9. You're 10 to 16. So you're right in that age range.
Yep.
What, traveling on a bus together, do you have any crazy, funny stories?
Yes. Yes.
Jake just
But
starts
the thing is, it's like you don't contextualize it as crazy until
later.
Until later when you're like, oh wait, you guys
back.
like that whole time I was on the bus, you guys were going to school and stuff.
Right.
You know, so, but yeah, we had like the way you divide up your house into, this is the game room and these are your bedrooms and this is the main room or something. We had that, but it was like, this is my bunk. This is the back lounge with the TV. And
It's like a school bus thing?
No, it was like a tour bus.
RV?
Yeah,
Like
so
a 40
technically,
foot.
yeah.
Okay.
It was a 1988 Eagle tour bus.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then, like when you showed up at these churches, like you would do, everybody would share different like stories, different testimonies. You'd sing songs. Was it that kind of thing?
We would sing songs and my dad would speak.
Okay.
So we never did speaking, like the speaking part. We didn't publicly speak or anything like that. It was kind of like, go, you know.
Do you remember like your top 3 songs that you did everywhere you went?
Yeah.
There's so many. Yeah.
But the top 3 were definitely, my mom wrote a song called I Pray For You that everybody would cry. We wrote a song called, I don't know, I think mom wrote Stand for Jesus too.
I was
going to
say Stand for Jesus was definitely up
guaranteed
there.
like people
Everybody,
just involuntarily stand or voluntarily standing, you know, for that number. Let's see. Number three is tough to say. What's the Blind Man? It's all alone. That one's pretty popular.
The Jake double solo classic on that one.
Yeah.
Dad's
At some point,
silly
my dad-
song about the dog.
My dad
was
had
up
humorous songs that he would do as like a reprieve from, you know, the existential songs.
Yeah.
What was that one about? You like just you're too loud or something?
You talk too much?
You talk too much. You worry me to death.
Yeah.
You talk too much. You even worry my pet. I mean, it was a whole smorgasbord of entertainment.
I love
Yeah,
that.
my dad would do that. He would do this, and this is not a reflection of my dad in his current level of development, but but in that crowd, it was like totally okay to be like, what, you know, women talk too much, like the classic thing, you know,
Oh, for sure.
or habitual thing, we'll say. And so my dad would do this like real sincere, like this song goes out to the ladies, you know, like whatever.
And everyone's
And
like,
then
oh, this is nice. This is going to be so nice.
Yeah. And then you launch it, you talk too much.
Oh, no.
Like the places like that.
Got a good laugh.
Yeah. So
I think we did a good mix. I think we did a solid mixture of, because my dad's a songwriter. He was. And I think we did a solid mixture of songs that he wrote and songs that would have been a little more classic in the Southern gospel, Gaither, Southern gospel music community.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah, I actually wasn't expecting you to name like songs that your dad had written.
Right.
I was thinking you would name
right.
like just pop, you know, like Gaither pop songs or something like that. Yeah.
yeah. And I think we did do some of those, but I think my dad was really interested in being and like providing something original, and so I think the idea of doing the most popular Gaither song wasn't as enticing.
Yeah.
yeah, he wanted to do what the Gaithers were doing, you know. He's a real entrepreneur.
a true artist.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Good. Well, so bring people to Kansas City then. You guys all landed in Kansas City.
Yeah.
And so give us like help us understand what took place in your family that caused you to not sing gospel music all around the country anymore.
Okay.
How's that task?
Yeah. So, you know, we had been traveling on the road for 5-6 years, and the like emotional toll that it takes on like a developing young mind was I think really stressful. And so I think for the older kids, Jordan, my older brother, and then my sister, Bethany, in particular, you know, you go too long into your teenage years without a like legitimate friendship or any like grounded connection to friends and organized sports and whatever. I think it was really difficult. We were all homeschooled on the bus, and so I think everyone, all of the kids were just increasingly begging my parents to stop, because it was kind of tough. We would go to a church maybe we would go to some children's, my experience was maybe I would go to some children's like time on Sunday. I would have a bunch of attention because I'm some new kid that drove in on a colorful tour bus, and maybe I'd meet a friend, and then I'd be like, okay, if we come back next year, I'll see you next year. Here's my email address. And so I think we were all like really desperately trying, like, and I think my mom probably, was really paying attention to that quite a bit. And eventually my dad was invited to come to Kansas City to consider starting a church downtown Kansas City and play probably some music role. And so we visited this starting church in Kansas City. They invited my dad to come in and play a music role and other responsibilities. And so we went back to Florida, packed up our home, moved to Kansas City, and that was kind of the beginning. That was in 2008, I believe. And so that was kind of the beginning of the family began building some semblance of roots in Kansas City.
All right.
Yeah. And the way we stopped singing together, or the way we stopped kind of participating in that world, is that church that our family was a part of starting. We got the boot from that church, and that happened in 2008 during kind of the 2008 housing crash or whatever. My mom was sick. We didn't know what was wrong with her, but she was like bedridden, sick type of thing. And then, just kind of like, I think everybody at the same time, parents included, maybe I was like maybe a little ahead of the curve in terms of being like, I'm over this. But everybody kind of became disenchanted with the organization of the church in general. Like, it kind of moved from like, this is all like, my parents were never not employed by the church to that point. And then that was the beginning of like, all right, we're not employed by the church, don't really go to church, kind of over that venture.
And I'm just curious. So you go through, so did the whole family feel hurt?
Yes.
Like, because you think about your mom, dad,
yeah,
and then 5 kids, all different ages, but collectively as a whole family, was there kind of a hurt that obviously generated that move away from the church that everybody felt? Did the whole family feel it?
I think what was really difficult for me was there was this sense of a betrayal of sorts, but the whole time, whether it be, hey kids, we're going to buy a bus and go travel and sing music, or hey, we're going to pack up from Florida and move to Kansas City. All of like the moves that I had been a part of with the family it was always like, Jesus is calling me. God is calling us to do this. This is like there's a higher purpose here. And so inside of the betrayal of like the feeling of betrayal, I wasn't quite sure where to put, I think. And so what came into question wasn't just the particular church or the particular person or it was like, is this Christianity as a whole? Is this God? Is this my dad? Who's responsible here? Because this seems fucked up. And I feel like I was definitely upset and angry at kind of all of the above during the experience, particularly the church, because I saw my mom was sick, money was wildly stressful, and the thing that God had called us to do just dumped us on the side of the street. And now I am suffering, like, and I say this knowing the context of the world, but my experience was I am suffering the consequences of some bullshit. I don't know what, but if God called you to do this, then why are you being punished? Why am I being punished for, so there was a weird experience inside of that feeling of betrayal. I know it looked like you had something to say there, Brooke, but that was my experience personally.
Yeah, mine was definitely different just because I was younger and felt like I found out that we were even moving like later than everyone, so it felt like I wasn't in the know maybe as much as I wanted to be, being younger. So it was definitely a little bit different, but I think the underlying feeling of like something hurt and something betrayed was there, whether it was super conscious or not. Yeah.
This was, you guys are basically, you've left the church, and your feeling, Brooke, was you felt all of that, but didn't know, you wouldn't have been able to put language around it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I was making my exit from the family at that time, you know, just because of the age I was kind of launching.
Right.
So I was like, I guess necessarily self-focused at that point. You know, I didn't really, I was like ready to get out of the house. So like everything that was going on for them, I was kind of like, that's what's going on for you. I'm making my way into the world, you know, hobbling my way out into adulthood. Yeah.
So what, how did that affect your faith journey? And I'm sure all three of you are a little different, but like, did it send you into a huge questioning mode? Did it send you into did you feel like atheist kind of mode, or did you just question everything mode? How did your faith unravel? And then let's talk about that first. How did it unravel for you? And then after we talk about that, let's talk about what's emerged.
Sure.
Yeah. So
I was in question mode kind of from like maybe when we started traveling on. And I think it was just because I had somewhat like a mentor of mine suggest Blue Like Jazz.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, sure.
And that was the beginning of like seeing Donald Miller as someone who could pose questions to that structure, you know, or make a complaint or an assessment about the effectiveness or the what is true about that. Just seeing someone be able to ask that question kind of like emboldened me to, start taking away things that didn't resonate. And my particular path with it was I took things away as they didn't resonate, took things away, and then ended up probably in my early 20s in the place of like atheism, you know, like a kind of maybe a rational materialist view. And then, moved from there, which will probably be the next section of that question.
And I remember one time we were talking, Jordan, and you described the way that sort of your faith world collapsed like a Jenga. I just remember that. I loved that analogy. It's like you pulled out one block and then you felt like the whole structure that you kind of built your faith life on, it kind of just fell.
Yeah, totally. It didn't, not a lot of that held up. And I think, at depth, it's probably because, the way I contextualize it, and we've talked about Wilbur a little bit, but like the way I contextualize it is literally myself as a philosophical being changing its operating system from like a more mythic, just believe the things that we believe in order to get to the right afterlife, to maybe having a more rational look at that stuff. And a lot of the even what's real about or even what is effective or meaningful about the beliefs that emerged in the mythic structure didn't hold up to a rational inquiry. And so I kind of had to like shore up that rational part of myself to reflect on, okay, what do I resonate with here? And like the Jenga thing is like, as soon as I noticed myself as a well, I'm using the term mythic like a specialized term in that context. But as soon as I noticed myself just believing things in order to believe them, all the magic disappears. And that's the Jenga. Is like, oh yeah, I pull one thing, I start pulling this strand just a little bit, and there's not a whole lot of my worldview that isn't sitting on what is essentially a thought that I identify with, like a belief.
Yeah.
You know?
How about you guys? If you think about how did your faith journey sort of melt down, or I don't know.
Yeah,
how did you question it?
I think it happened for me a little bit later, like after we had left Kansas City. But yeah, I think even still maybe a little bit, I have just like shut it off instead of, searching. Like I'm not searching for anything. I'm just kind of like, I don't really want to deal with that, So that's kind of where I still sit, I think. Yeah.
Did you go through, Brooke, a time when you definitely felt like you were all in faith-wise with the evangelical Christian world?
For sure.
And then
I mean,
did you definitely feel like there was a time when you sort of disengaged from that?
I mean, from early on, like I believe I was baptized like pretty early on, like not really with I don't remember it. I don't really remember making that conscious decision. So I definitely like followed blindly, fear-based for probably until I was in like 7th grade is when I started to be like, well, I don't really feel good believing that. And then I kind of started to while out a little bit. So yeah.
All right.
Fred, for me, I feel like I initially I feel like my resolve was strengthened inside of my faith and my desire to like walk through, be a Christian, like my fervor or whatever. So I mean, initially, I think when everything was going, when the initial sort of upset started happening for my dad at the church, I was. Do you know IHOP, International House of Prayer?
I do. Okay,
so I mean, I don't really know how to say this. I was like really proudly, I would call myself a Jesus freak. I was really proudly like excited about this, and I had multiple friends who we would study scripture. So I was becoming very astute, like really, I kind of was starting to lean on my intellect a little bit because I realized I was like, oh, if I really believe this, I want to understand. I want to be able to dismantle any argument that may oppose me philosophically or ideologically. I would like to be able to stand up inside of any context in this. That's always been very important to me. And so, studying Revelation and all these scriptures and like coming back with notes, I was really excited. And then this weird thing happened. We moved to Colorado after, everything kind of shook out and played out. My mom was still terribly ill. So we moved to Colorado, I think, to kind of escape Kansas City. And also, we knew it was going to be really nice for my mom to be close to her twins. We were like, this seems like a great place to go. We moved to Colorado, and my experience was like moving from this, ultra suburban home as the middle child in this family. I have outlets. I have a sports team. I played drums for my brother's new rock band. I had friend circles everywhere. I was engaged in music as much as I wanted to be. My house was always a really musical house. When we lived in this suburban home, it was like instruments everywhere and all these things. And all of a sudden I found myself in Colorado in this stinky fucking town in a trailer. I'm the oldest, so my older brother and my older sister were left behind. My mom is sick. We're poor. We don't have any instruments. I don't have any friends. I don't know anybody. There are no sports. There's no outlet. I don't play music anymore. There's nothing. And I am and everyone is terribly sad in my house. Everyone is terribly angry and frustrated and sad. And I'm the oldest now. And I got to experience my first sort of, my second round of depression. But that one was like very intense for me. The experience of like kind of for the first time being like just fantasizing about dying, just fantasizing about not being there was like my reality for a while, for months. And inside of that is this crazy desire to be a Christian, this crazy desire to like, I want to know, like, I want this to be where I want to believe that this is like somehow I've got, you know, all things work together for God, you know, and it's like trying to do this. And then all of a sudden, like a anvil fell on my head, was like these Christian colored glasses fell from my face, and I started looking around at reality going, oh, everything that I believe about this actually doesn't seem most likely. Maybe it is, but all of a sudden every answer that I give to every question is like, well, that doesn't seem most probable. That doesn't seem like that adds up. That doesn't make sense. I can't fit that reality into my idea of God, and this reality that God is a part of. I don't want to be a part of that God. Oh shit, what am I gonna do? You know, like, what do you do? And so my deconstruction was really interesting, and then it, like, from there, you know, built this massive amount of resentment toward what I felt like was an embarrassment on my intellect. How could I not have seen this before? How, Jake, you're so, and so all this like judgmental stuff comes, you know, you read a little bit of Nietzsche and it's like, I think I'm definitely a nihilist. And then I'm like, oh shit, well.
You read that and then watch Fight Club.
Exactly. Or like, what's the Clockwork Orange or something, you know? And so it was really interesting that the nihilism doesn't stand up very well to, like, if you want to, like, in my opinion. So it went from there to like atheism to Buddhism and pantheism, like just kind of exploring all these ideas. And then after that, I'm going through high school, being a kid, study some philosophy, but that experience of doubling down on my faith, and then that doubling down almost added to this embarrassment of who I had been and who I was. Yeah. And that was really where the real deconstruct, that was where it was for me.
Interesting. So interesting, isn't it? You know, I shared with you before we started that I've been getting to know Brian McLaren, who's written a lot of books, and one of his most recent books is called Faith After Doubt. And, you know, he's taken, like, you know, Wilbur has all these developmental phases of sort of faith journey, and you have all this adulthood development. So there's a lot of thinkers in that space, in psychology and even in the religious world, like Wilbur, have developed these sort of phases of growth. And McLaren in his Faith After Doubt book just kind of boiled those down into 4 stages that it kind of resonated with me. I mean, there's always can be a little danger in making stages, you know, right? And how you think about them and all that. But the first stage is what he just calls simplicity. It's how all of us grow up. I mean, we all have people that raise us. They teach us, you know, what's right and wrong, who's in and out. You know, it's just the real simple rules of life, and you kind of learn your tribe and learn the rules and what's, you know, what is and isn't, kind of, but very dualistic, very black and white, you know, very, very simple. And then he says, and some people stay in that, you know, their whole life, like their answers that they got as kids for their faith and their worldview is like what they live with the rest of their life, and they die in that, right? Yeah. Then there's the second phase he calls complexity, which that's where you begin to realize, holy crap, this is quite complex. And then you can double down a little bit and try to become an apologist and figure out all the answers to defend your faith and all of the things, you know, and like you can spend a lifetime in that. I mean, I was a pastor of a mega church for a lot of years, you know, and you know, you come up with all kinds of answers for the complexity.
You have the
that's
answer.
out there.
You have an answer on tap for like, you know. But then how does suffering happen?
Exactly.
You know, when you're like, I got this. Don't worry.
Yeah, and then people stay in that phase, right? And then you have what he calls perplexity, which is typically when something happens that it's like the Jenga phase where something happens, just it kind of all falls apart.
Yeah.
And then you're searching, you're in perplexity, you can get super cynical, you know, you can like get angry, you know. In 2019, like here I'd been a pastor for 40 years, you know, and then I'm like feeling like an atheist, and if God exists, well, it's like, then I'm angry, you know, like I was like, super angry.
Totally.
Yeah, man. It's like, well,
wait, what's after perplexity?
Yeah. So then he says, this isn't like, he's not trying to say this is also superior or anything like that.
Right.
But he's trying to call it harmony, where people are, you know, because even we grow up with all these Christian stories and these Christian scriptures and these Christian metaphors, and Buddhist kids grow up with that, and Hindu kids grow up with that, and it happens. It's not just a Christian thing. These stages, it's a human thing, right? All humans go through this. All human parents teach their kids some kind of worldview about the world that they live in and they're growing up in, and you know, one of a Hindu friend, you know, the Hindus have this little book of children books about the Hindu gods, and they all have blue faces. You know, the Hindu kids going, do all gods have blue faces? And then like the parents trying to, well, honey, you know, and like Brian McLaren says, you know, when you're a parent trying to teach your kid about God, it's kind of like talking to your kid about sex. Like you don't want to tell them too much and traumatize them. But you don't want to, you know, you want to give them what they can handle, and then when they grow up, they don't think you're a total liar, you know, like you know
complicated.
So anyway, but he says harmony. So like you begin to reintegrate and reimagine all of these images, because these religious images are almost like our native language. Like, you know, my heart language is English, but the spiritual language that formed me was definitely from a Jesus Bible Christian. I have thousands of verses memorized. Well, then now, as I go back and revisit that after going through perplexity and feeling like it all fell apart, then I kind of reimagine, and then I like to say I'm less certain and more open right now than ever before, but try to be gracious about all those phases, and because it's a part of the human cycle. So so that's what he's calling harmony. And then there's so many of us, like parents in that phase are like going, well, how do I raise my kids? Right?
Yeah.
Jordan?
Yeah, bro.
You're a dad, bro.
I'm a dad. Dude.
You know?
Yeah, for real. Well, I mean, it's like, you mentioned something that's like, it's when you have a stage theory, it's so important to, I mean, there's an initial comfort with having any context to like map reality.
Exactly, right.
But then you can make the mistake of like confusing the map with the terrain.
Exactly.
In terms of like, well, you're interacting with life, man.
Exactly.
This thing is like, it's not something you can get your head around. And just because you have a context you can fit it into doesn't make it any, you know. So, I mean, I've noticed that in myself, like becoming at least educated to the view of like the spiral dynamics or the stages of development or anything like that. Gravitating to the comfort of having a label for a given stage or whatever. And more recently, like noticing the importance of not elevating the map above the terrain. You know, it's like, I'm still with life, and this is and this is like, this might be a useful way to contextualize some things in life, but it's not life, you know, it's not what it represents. And then there's also I was talking to a friend who's a student of similar stuff, you know, we've had a similar life path. In fact, it's the person that I went on that hitchhiking journey with. I don't know if I talked to you about that hitchhiking journey.
You did.
But, so
and then Jake went on one too.
Yeah, Jake went on one too.
Yeah.
The friend.
Did you go on one, Brooke?
No, not yet.
No way.
Not yet. Watch out.
Brooke's had her own adventures. But like, I was talking to him and we were just working through some stuff in that way, and it was like, there's like this, for people who are wired up, you know, maybe similar to me, where it's really important to explore and know as much as you can while being committed to not knowing, you know, like be in that existential kind of working out all the time, you know, it's really easy to think that the next stage is the better one.
Yeah.
You know,
that's what I mean by the danger.
That's a better one. Yeah. Creating a hierarchy out of these stages.
Yeah.
Like, it's not okay for somebody to just kind of have a simple, a simpler or more concise worldview that works for them to move through life that isn't dysfunctional for them. You know, it's not like destroying their life or something. It's like,
and maybe not hurting a ton of other people in the process. You know, which,
it's like, it's not like one is better than the other. And the way that I've started to think about it is it's less like the next phase is the best phase because you got big enough to be in that phase, and more like the next phase is just an inevitability of like getting what there is to get out of this one, you know? And that's just what's coming. It's not better. It's not there are unique problems that emerge in each of those things. You know, like you said, how do you raise your kids from that the stage of harmony? You know, I don't have an answer, but it's like, that's a unique problem, because you know sure as hell how to raise your kids in this.
I have so many friends right now that are raising kids that have gone through this type of deconstruction, and they're like what do we teach our kids? You know, I mean, it's so interesting, and I love that little analogy. It's kind of like talking to your kids about sex.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of interesting to think about it.
Yeah, like age appropriate transparency. You know, how do you work that out?
So you know, I'd have kids come into me and ask the hardest questions all the time. Is, you know, the parents would bring them to me. Well, the pastor has the answer, you know. Well, where did God come from? You know.
Easy. I got this.
Well, Timmy, God's always existed. Oh, okay. I get it now. Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
No more questions.
13.8 billion years ago.
Oh, and his face is blue.
His face is blue.
It's very important that you remember that. If somebody tells you they're God and they don't have a blue face,
don't
get out of there.
If you get a book and it doesn't say Holy Bible, it's the wrong book, man. Don't take it.
Hasn't been vetted by the appropriate council, who unfortunately disbanded a while ago.
JV bus.
Oh man, you know, and I thought too. I think the harder you believe, the harder you fall.
Yeah.
Or the harder your deconstruction. So, like, you think about it. Did you ever meet kids along the way that, like, they were in church and stuff, but they just didn't take it that seriously?
Dude, that's our brother Josh.
Like, it just didn't really matter to them. They never took it seriously, and so they don't really deconstruct from much.
Dude, I was so jealous of Josh.
You know what I'm saying?
I remember asking my brother, who's in between Jake and Brooke, I said, dude, did you always, because I see in him the part of himself, he's so, Josh is very thoughtful, and his reality is much more grounded in his experience than consulting the agreed upon experience of others, you know, at least from where I am. And I was like, dude, have you always like trusted that part of yourself, you know, that just kind of knew if something was off? And he was like, oh yeah. Like, I never was really fully in, you know? And I was like, I'm so jealous, dude.
Yeah, me too.
Isn't that interesting?
Well, it makes sense, because like how much of your identity are you putting into this belief? And so the more of yourself that you put into what you believe, the more that has to die when it deconstructs.
Yeah.
And then the death is like, it's not so much that it hurts to die, it hurts to know. It's like the implication of you dying is, I think, is where the pain comes from, and the discomfort. It's the implication that something needed to die because there was some, like, I feel like it's evidence of some misstep, of some mistake. Yeah. And that, I think, can be painful for people.
Yeah.
It was for me.
Yeah. And I've tried to be honest with my journey with the people that are paying attention anymore, you know? And, it's like, I'm just trying to say, hey, questions and doubt and even unbelief aren't the enemy of faith. Like, it's a part of the faith journey, right?
Yeah.
And maybe certainty and dogma is the enemy of faith. I don't know.
Certainly inconsistent with the concept of faith, like certainty and certainty is.
I like to say I'm less certain and more open these days.
Yeah.
And I'm like happy with that.
Yeah.
And so in some ways I feel like a kid again, right?
Yeah.
In terms of learning and growing and all that kind of stuff. And then still trying to reintegrate my life and move forward with it, So it's interesting stuff. Well, let's talk about music. All right. So you kind of had this musical career. Are you musical, Brooke?
Yeah.
Are you still, do you write music, sing?
Yeah, I do. I'm in a band. I do stuff on my own. I work at a music store. I'm surrounded by music for sure.
Sweet.
Brooke is like the sleeper agent at this moment, because both of us have said this. We're like, dude, if anybody has a chance in the big game from our family, like the big music game, it's this one.
Brooke?
Oh yeah.
Sweet.
Oh yeah. She's like,
I don't
yeah,
know.
no, yeah, I mean, you would have to say that to that level of a compliment. You have to say, you can't be like, that's right.
You're right.
So
Watch it
let's
happen.
have people, like if they want to jump in on your music right now and get, where do they go? Let's do that real quick. And then we'll talk about,
Jake should answer that.
and we're going to have you do some music here in a minute. So
Nice. Yeah, Jake Wells is where you can find Jake Wells online. Jordan and I also have a custom songwriting business called The Creative Wells. And so we have a website called thecreativewells.com, and that houses a lot of our custom songs that we've done. But under Jake Wells, you'd find an album where Jordan and I brought together a lot of the custom songs that we've done. But Jordan and I have been doing music, since the beginning of me doing music on my own, essentially. And so he's kind of all over my catalog, and I'm somewhat in his.
The three of us just did an EP as well called the Siblings EP, which you can find on Jake's.
Which
Spotify,
I think you didn't know this, but you heard. I mean, I assume you heard the new version of Born Again that we did. Is that?
Roll Like Thunder, you mean?
No, I meant Born Again.
No, I know.
I haven't heard the newest version.
Okay, Brooke
Oh, okay, I
sings
see.
in the new version of Born Again that I think you would.
Okay, I know I haven't listened to that one.
It's what that song deserved to be. Like the one that was released before that was a live recording of an
acoustic set.
An acoustic session that I just had Jake come in and sit with me on. But as soon as we did that song with the three of us, it was like that song's like complete now.
Can you do that today?
Yeah, we'll do it today.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet.
It's beautiful though. Like we released that last month, and so go like search Jake Wells, and the latest release is the Siblings EP.
Okay.
There's another single coming out tomorrow, but the latest release is a Siblings EP with 2 songs, and that's with Jordan, Brooke, and myself reimagining Born Again and another song, Roll Like Thunder.
Yeah, I love the roll. I love your music. I'm gonna have to listen to yours now, Brooke. But I love some of the way you mix in some of the themes of nature, whether it be water or whether it be I don't know. I don't know. You mix nature themes in.
Yeah.
Like some of the elemental things.
Yeah. The water was largely Jake.
Was it?
With that stuff, but then I think
What's the one that you did, Mystic something or other?
No, in the
Indigo Sea.
Indigo Sea.
That's one of my
yeah.
favorites.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
he's
such a good
I love
song.
that song. Yeah.
So good.
And I love the water. Yeah. At any rate, those speak to me, and I love the Born Again. The first time I listened to that, I just go, oh, holy crud! This is like, because I wasn't expecting the turn that the song took.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that was like the beginning of like, all right, I'm making peace with this thing. I'm giving that domain all of the value that it had for me, and I'm taking back what I'd like to have back, and that's that.
It's a great reimagination, I think, of capturing a journey that you're on and then reimagining it moving forward and still hanging on to some metaphors, just using them in a different way.
Totally. Yeah. And
Very
the tone
cool.
of the song, tone of the song calls to that. Calls to that space. It's very much, it's like a worshipful song, you know, in the way that it's delivered. And I love worship music. Like I've, even at my most atheist type of phase, would still like sit in on the guitar for a worship session at a church, actually some vineyard churches. Just because I love the experience of that music and the surrender that's a part of it. So
yeah, good stuff.
That was always wild to me. I feel like I'm certain that I would have like a mental breakdown if I were a part of a like a Christian, like a normal church music service. Pretty sure I would lose it.
Don't do it.
For some,
I won't.
For some people, the hurt and trauma was so deep that just to revisit it is triggering. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I do think that I think revisiting trauma in a healing way, and then reintegrating, and you do it incrementally, right?
Size.
Sure.
Right, is a part of the healing process. So I do think there's something to that. But yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. I would do it. Like
situations
I want to figure it out, because there's a big part of me that's like, oh, I would love to be a worship leader. It would be so much fun.
So
man.
the church that I go to when I go is a black church, and it's black gospel. So it's totally outside my tradition, you know, and it's quite healing, because they talk about darkness and slavery and bondage and all of that, those images that kind of like for me and what I'd gone through, it was healing for me to just sit there,
totally,
and be the one black guy in
the black community, people, like, you know? The music and
be one white guy.
That's what I gathered.
Yeah.
We should talk after this, you know.
It's okay,
I'm
Grandma.
transforming, actually. I'm transforming, you know. Hanging out. I was in Ethiopia last October, so anyway.
Yeah.
Brooke, where do we find your music?
Currently, I'm a featured artist, so I have nothing of my own out. You can find some like songs that I did like 4 or 5 years ago on SoundCloud, but other than that, just look out for stuff coming soon. Yeah.
Would they go to Instagram? Where would they find you?
It'll be on Spotify, so it'll be under Brooke Cherith. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Spell it for everybody.
Brooke Cherith is Cherith.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, she did sing on the song.
Yeah, featured on this EP, featured on another album that actually Jordan and I worked on with a friend, Jay. So that stuff's on Spotify under a portfolio. But yeah, stuff coming soon though, for sure.
And you're doing a new band right now as well?
Yes, we got a new band that's coming off the blocks right now. One single out. It's called The Sunrecks. Sunrecks is one word, SUNWRECKS. And
we're here to warn you that the Andromeda Galaxy is coming.
Yes. No, the imagery of it was like, picturing like if the galaxies collided at like if we could look at it in fast motion, you know, how cool it would be to see all this, you know, things happen. Like the inevitability of that is cool. And then that's where that imagery came from. But that, I mean, it's just a cool band name. That's really what it is. But that is more of like, that is my, what did you say? Like my
It's Jordan, baby. It's
unleash
Jordan.
Just unleashing the beast, man. Just like going for it and like unleashing the wrath within.
Yeah.
But it's melodic. It's not like screaming or like metal or something. It's still holding to.
Where
like
do they
rock
find
and roll.
that? Where do they go?
Spotify, iTunes, or Apple Music.
What do they type in?
The Sunrecks.
Okay.
Yeah, the Sunrecks. It'll be there. We're the only band.
And then what about your solo stuff?
Solo stuff is under J Taylor. So J period space Taylor. Just all regular spelling there. And some of that catalog is tied to Jake's, not only through Jake's catalog, but through the custom songs that he was mentioning. So we've been basically taking clients that have like a relationship or a story in their life, or maybe a loss or something like that they want a piece of music to like speak to, and we'll interview the client and then go into the studio for a few weeks and write something and record it for them. So that music you can find either in either of our catalogs, the J. Taylor catalog or Jake Wells, or you can find it on the creativewells.com. So
awesome. Good. All right. Well, we're going to have them close with a song or two. So, all right.
The music question's a mouthful. We just named like 6 projects.
I know.
Right.
It's like, well,
I know.
So do you guys do music?
Everywhere.
Oh, well, yes.
Yeah.
I'm in 4 projects today.
Right.
yeah.
Thanks
Well,
for
as long as
listening, yeah.
people can just find it. So I've had so many people because have loved like Born Again because you did that, I think, when you were here last, and like I don't know. So anyway, I know that there's listeners who will want to find the new stuff.
There's a lot of beautiful music in in everyone's catalogs. There's a lot of beautiful things to be heard.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's do it.
Cool.
This next song is called Kansas Heat.
You should do that and introduce yourself.
My name is Brooke Cherith, and this song is called Kansas Heat. I've got a bone to pick, 'cause this doesn't feel too sweet. I haven't been home in a few. Had someone look after me. I got my memories, most of them tear me down. Like when I'm underwater and my lungs don't have space to breathe. I left my bones on the freeway in the Kansas heat. Oh, it's after me. Oh, it's chasing me down. I left my bones on the freeway in the Kansas heat with the best in me. Oh, I'm chasing you down, I'm chasing you down. Now I've got some shit to lose, like the lover who tends to me in the morning heat. What a season to see how I moved in a mess, looking for some kind of rest. I left my bones on the freeway in the Kansas heat. Oh, it's after me. Oh, it's chasing me down. I left my bones on the freeway in the Kansas heat with the best in me. Oh, I'm chasing you down, I'm chasing you down. Could someone look after me, look after me? It's burning me up, and it's burning me up. Could someone look after me, look after me? It's burning me up, and it's burning me up. Could someone look after me, look after me? It's burning me up, and it's burning me up. Could someone look after me, 'cause I'm burning up. I left my bones on the freeway in the Kansas heat.
That was beautiful, Brooke. Nice.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning into Spirituality Adventures, and thanks for doing your music. So that's beautiful. I love your music. Roll Like Thunder, awesome. For those who are into our bonus content, they'll also be doing a song that Brooke wrote called Kansas Heat, and then one of my favorites, Born Again, that Jordan wrote. So thank you guys so much, and we will see all of you next time. Thanks for tuning in. This concludes today's episode. Thanks for tuning in and listening. Remember, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Remember to like, share, or subscribe to the social media platform that you're using. And then go to our website, spiritualityadventures.com, and make a one-time donation, or you can subscribe monthly and receive our special bonus content. Thanks so much.